There you go.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to the Christian Science Reading Room today. I'm Bill Block. I'm the Institute Society manager, and we are here today to introduce Robby Butler. And I just want to give you a little background about how this talk all came together. So about a year ago, our son was talking to us about AI, and it was kind of new to us, and how we kind of needed to embrace the situation and learn more about it, and get our feet wet in the whole situation. So in that, we started using it more and more, and it came to a point to where we needed to we decided to have a lecture. And so we worked with the mother church to find somebody who could be a lecturer, and nobody was quite the right fit. So then I took some time to think and pray about it, and I went to the well, and I went to some of my old apprentices that used to sail with me on my sailboat, and Robby's name came up. And the first time we talked, I knew exactly he was the right person for this talk. So Robby Butler is he's with the Y Street Capital. He manages $1.5 million worth of assets. He's an early adapter of AI. He started with ChatGPT back in 2022, I think it was. And he's been with it ever since. He's a lifelong Christian Scientist and a graduate of Principia University. And he's here today. He lectures all over the country, in Mexico, United States, and Canada. And most recently, he just had a talk in Texas with the Texas Banker Association. So anyway, Robby, the floor is yours, and thank you for joining us today.
Really excited to be with you all this morning and this afternoon. My company would laugh because they do send me out, and I share this message in some form or fashion. But the title that we chose as we worked this out over the last 6 months is one that it will stick with me. That wisdom and judgment and artificial intelligence all do have a place next to or akin to each other, but exploring it is a heady concept. This is on the cutting edge of all technology. So we can talk about the actual boots on the ground things, because most people care about it from simply a business perspective, but you all care about it from a larger perspective. The thought that is behind this, and the reason why these subjects are important, not just for their utility in business or in figuring out what vegetables to plant in your garden, or why my child is doing what it's doing, but at a higher level, what's going on in the thinking of the world, and where will this take us? So I would say you're here because you value what wisdom and judgment have for all humanity, you individually, but for the bigger picture as well. And yet, it's clear artificial intelligence also has something to do with that today. It's on the thought of so much of the world today. So we will go into that. We need to talk through a moment of context, because defining these terms will be helpful, especially if you're new to AI, and we'll get a little audience feedback in a second, so rest assured. But knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Is everybody aware of that? Tomatoes are fruits? Good. By the way, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Great. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting a tomato in a fruit salad. It's a fruit. An AI tool in 2022 might have told you, you have to shove that right in the fruit salad, it belongs. Wisdom would say, it might not taste that good. Judgment is not eating fruit salads that have tomatoes put in them. Putting these things in their various categories can be helpful as we start to triangulate what's going on. AI does have something to do with wisdom and judgment and knowledge. So I commend you for your choice to be here and work these concepts through. We'll lay out the ground rules. I'll give you a little table of contents in just a little bit, but bear with me as we define where we're going for the day. Does anyone know, or does anyone have a short definition of what AI is today? Any short answers? Shout them out.
Artificial intelligence.
Fair, yes. What's that? Any short definitions?
A compilation of what it's already written and understood before.
Thank you. Yeah, summarizing the past knowledge of history. Good answer.
World Library.
World Library. Good answer. There's more.
Data being explained?
Data being explained. Interesting.
I think I know, I would say a pattern, but they read patterns. You read patterns really well.
I would say that is the most correct answer. AI is pattern recognition. Most of us take tests when you're on, especially in elementary school or whatnot, like triangle, square, triangle, what's the next thing gonna be? AI is doing pattern recognition. How and what does that have to do with the concept of wisdom, knowledge, and judgment? Well, in 2018, it had read 1 billion words. That's 10,000 books. So it was starting to get a sense of, oh, like this is what's going on with society. In 2019, they multiplied it by 10, and this is where people started to pay attention. And they went, AI got 10 times as good when it read 10 times as many words. That would be, I can't remember the math on 10 billion, so it would be 100,000 books. 2025, it's estimated AI did 10 trillion words. That is 100 million books. That is a lot. I used to know how many times back and forth between us and the moon does that pile of books go, but you get the point. What the researchers and the computer scientists are doing is saying, one pattern is we feed AI more words and it makes improvements at the same rate. It's understanding from everything it's being fed the patterns. Okay, very nice. That is a good definition of AI, pattern recognition. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I like to think about it as amplified intelligence,
Sure. Amplified intelligence.
which fits into everything you were just saying.
Yeah, thank you for that. It certainly is. It's amplifying. It's getting a pile.
I don't see how intelligence can be artificial. Doesn't make sense to me.
Cool. Yeah, let's come back to that because that would be a fun exploration to go through.
What does the term large language models, how does that fit into your definition?
If you're willing to wait about 20 minutes, let's say 15 minutes, we will go into large language models. Great question.
Okay.
It essentially is the recipient of all these things. Large language models is your interface, what most of us are interacting with AI through. It has a lot of language in a model that says, because you said this word to me, based on patterns, I think you mean this, and this is what you want in response.
Thanks for the quick answer. I'll be patient.
Perfect. However, wisdom and judgment, has anyone's life followed a perfect pattern? Would you say, yeah, just like I was told, this is exactly how it happened. Would anyone say, yeah, perfect pattern? That is one of the features that we are aware of that AI is not yet grappling with, though it's very close. In order to really dig into what life is, we have to find some objective standpoint to measure wisdom and judgment. And I will be transparent with you, this is a little bit of where you get me as a part of this presentation. But in order to be able to understand judgment and wisdom, you have to have some objective level. So you will get my sense of that in this presentation with the invitation that you need your own. You need your own objective lens to look through in order to be able to size up where are we going with all these AI tools. You need some type of principle. How many of you here are familiar to some degree with Christian Science? Great. That's my lens. So understand we're using it because I can share it with you and you can then go, what is my specific lens? Don't need a label, don't need to tell anyone it, but that is part of how you get to measure, am I operating on wisdom? Do I have a lens, a lighthouse, a touchstone that I can lean on for what I'm trying to pursue here with this question of wisdom and judgment? The brief summary of Christian Science for the audience members who may not be familiar, especially our ones on Zoom. Christian Science, and what you'll hear from me, my lens says, Genesis 1 is the whole picture. Genesis 1 flows to why Jesus could heal. That's exactly why Jesus healed, was because Genesis 1 is true. The Bible is the chart of life, so you can go and read the Bible and say, okay, I get the objective lens. That is where I come from, and that is the tool I'm using to unpack this. So again, for your own use, you will work on your own lens, clarity. And we'll come back to why that is relevant to use the tools, but now you're getting where I'm coming from in sharing this. Yes, sir.
I've never heard Genesis 1 and Jesus healings connected with that. Have I missed something in Christian Science all these years?
Yes.
Is this a Mary Baker Eddy concept?
Absolutely.
See,
Yeah.
I've never read her. But
All good.
I picked up a lot from what's it called, those Seaside Center for Spiritual Living.
We have a free book for you if you want.
Again, and the purpose of sharing this is you have my lens, so you can look at me and go, okay, that's a lens. What do I need in my lens? What do you need in your lens to work effectively on wisdom, judgment, and AI? But you're getting my piece, and it's easiest to summarize in these brief 50 statements. To press on just for a moment, Mrs. A also believed, which is convenient in this talk, that the scientific method applies in every instance, including in Christian Science. So that's part of what allows me to go, okay, I've got a lens that I can start to look at AI and use an objective lens, a way to look at wisdom that is not purely self-contained. There's another source I can go to. In order to have wisdom, you have to have mind. So we'll get into consciousness in just a little bit, but acknowledging that that's one feature here that is easy to skip over if you get too excited about technology and you want to, oh, tell me about large language models, tell me about the agents out there that go and work. But we do have to remember, what is consciousness pointing to first, because that illustrates everything that happens after. So be patient with me here and we'll get into the subjects, but I'm laying the table work so that as we walk through a very heady concept, you all keep pointed in the right direction. What we'll cover today, we've already talked a little bit about what is AI, pattern recognition. We've talked about wisdom and judgment, fruit salad, eating the right fruit salad, not putting the wrong things in the fruit salad. We will talk about how they go together. We'll talk about how you can use it in faith and morality. We'll give you some light examples, and then we'll talk about what's coming in the future. I think we have some very good questions already in our lunchtime conversation about, well, where does this all go? Once you've got some sense of what AI can do, its current pattern recognition and its rate of growth, then what? So we'll talk that through. As you've done a great job already, I'm going to talk quickly, so just interrupt me, raise your hand if you've got a question so we can try and handle it, or we can say, yep, that'll come up in 20 minutes. Give me just a moment to get there. We'll get the slides and you'll get my email, so if there's a question you're going, no way I'm asking this in public, you can email me later and I'll be delighted to chit chat with you afterwards. This is a fun subject, so cannot wait to share that. I mentioned the consciousness thing. We have to start there because it's, in my opinion, the most sacred ground. Your own consciousness. Everything else can happen outside, but if you've got your consciousness, you have a working platform to understand these concepts. It's not just you though, because other people have some consciousness and they're thinking about AI differently. The spread of ways people are thinking about AI is enormous. I bet in this room we already have a fascinating sample size of all the various vectors of thinking about artificial intelligence. And it's only really been in the public consciousness for 4 years. So I'll give you a little 2x2 matrix on the next slide, but the purpose of that is not to go and figure yourself out today, but just to understand, here are some corners of the ways people think about AI. I got this out of Emmett Shear, who was the brief chief executive officer of OpenAI before Sam Altman took back over. If you don't recognize these names, that's okay. There's a big AI companies present in the marketplace today. In the top right, you have people who are like, you're building the world's greatest knowledge base ever, and it will be able to do anything. Let's go for it. In the bottom left, you have the internet, but it's more convenient, and why are you in such a rush? Slow down, I want to check the things it does. In the bottom right, you've got speed up, but it's just the internet, it's not a big deal. In the top left, you have massive danger. What am I going to do? Stop everything. I'm concerned we're going to ruin the environment or our children or the future of humanity. That's the top left. All this is out there. I've met people in all these various quadrants. We have to recognize that if you slap labels on people and go, oh, you're an AI user, you're clearly in the top left, and you know, I can't reason with you. It's not true. There's a lot of nuance to these various subjects. But it is worth acknowledging because the thesis for this whole talk is that your thought is the most important in interacting with AI. You're going to talk about wisdom and judgment. It begins with you. It doesn't begin purely externally. It begins with what you know and want to do in your life. I will take it a little further here, with your permission, and posit that technology responds to your thinking. Does anyone hear that and go, I had heard that before, or I think that makes sense, or my printer worked when I wasn't so upset with it. Can anyone say that this has been an experience for them?
Yeah.
You mean,
Yeah?
you mean when it tracks me and what I buy?
No, that's a good question. That's an element, but what I mean is purely your experience with your technology is influenced by the way you think about your technology. It's a silly example. If you're always upset with your printer, you probably have more printer problems than your average
I got
person.
rid of my printer. So.
Go to Office Depot because it's easier. Yeah.
And cheaper.
Cheaper, true.
Toner got very expensive.
The point, whether it's a cell phone, Zoom, the technology in your car, this is a key thesis. If we need to unpack this, we certainly can, but if we accept it for a moment, you'll hear this layer does not go away. If your thinking is the most important, I posit with you that your technology does respond to that. If you're willing to do a little more problem solving, solutions come to mind about why can't I FaceTime my grandchild because it's, the button doesn't work. Little solution thinking, suddenly things appear and you get a little bit smoother. As an example. So, if the thinking is the most important layer, and we're talking about wisdom and judgment and artificial intelligence, let's discuss a few basic premises first. Judgment comes from God. We don't just sit here judging each other all day long. Wisdom is available to everybody. You've seen children do incredibly smart things or have incredible insights. It's not because they're educated, it's because they've got access to wisdom too. And if you accept man has dominion over all thereof, meaning our experience and our consciousness is in control, we accept these basic three things, we can start to ease our way into a little bit more technology. I'm going to keep gently pushing us forward because you'll get to see what this has to do with AI.
Doesn't God have dominion over all the earth?
Yes, great point. I would say man reflects that. God says, yep, I've got this. And man goes, because of God's power, I am able to do that for the things God wants. It's a good question. What does this have to do with technology? We're super high level, but you asked about wisdom and judgment. That's where we are right now. I do like the words of Mrs. Eddy, Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, which says that your consciousness is your experience. So those two things are inextricably linked. These things don't happen at random. You get your experience directly out of what is in your thought at the time. So, even to the degree that technology is working well for you or frustrating, there are examples that I'll share later about ways that AI have smoothed things over purely because I knew I'm looking for a good solution here and I've got this technology in front of me. Mrs. Eddy uses a very clear statement. If you look up the words electricity in her writings, she makes the case that even electricity is just a form of our mental concept of things. Look up the word electricity in some of her writings and you'll see exactly what she says about consciousness being experienced. This is an example of what she describes as the ways that our thought permeates everything that we're involved with.
Did she mean by consciousness the same as awareness?
Generally, yes. Consciousness being both awareness externally and internally. Like kind of complete picture.
So when you're aware of something, you're conscious.
Yes. Yes, good question. So if consciousness of God brings some of those layers, some of the ability to see, okay, this is a good idea versus a bad idea. This is proper judgment that I should go forward. I would argue to you that, well, you don't need AI for any of this. AI is no longer the point. It is first and foremost about your consciousness. That being said, Mrs. Eddy also has a good statement that says even human invention must have its day. And all the current writers who are long-range thinking about AI are pointing to the fact that this is going to move humanity forward in a rapid and speedy fashion. And we'll talk to them in just a little bit about where we're going with that. But if human invention has to have its day, we have this sense that humanity has just taken a big step forward, but you don't want to lose your grip on the ground, which is your consciousness. There are other examples of what technology has done to transform the human experience over time. The printing press gave us information on a far wider scale. Suddenly you could have literature distributed freely. You did not have to hand write your books. Cars, suddenly were traveling much faster than horses and buggies. Computers, able to communicate first with the web, email, then Skype, then Zoom. All of that allowed communication to flow. Business happened faster. Things occurred in the marketplace that were more efficient. So what will happen with AI being a layer on top of all of that? The point here is that things speed up when these technologies are well applied. But as Mrs. Eddy's text referred to earlier, these are all human inventions, things that we did to help speed on some derived end that we're headed towards. So for you to take AI and maintain the wisdom and judgment that are already within you, the insight, the experience you have, here's my first subject to give to you as to how to do that well. It is your focus. True focus is rare. Someone willing to work with a problem or a concept for a long time is a gift that most people never give themselves. There are insights that people have gained because they spent a long time. Albert Einstein is well known for his quote saying, "I'm not much smarter than anyone else, I just stay with my problems longer." That is focus. It's unique focus.
I like it.
This book, the book at the bottom of the pile here, which is called What to Make of a Life, a brand new book, came out April 7th by Jim Collins. The whole first 100 pages are purely about focus. People who focused on what they were innately born to do. And examples like this are rare because it's very challenging. And yet, focusing on quality, long-term thinking, relationships, the real fruits of life, your niche in time and eternity, that is an essential piece of what allows you to use AI most effectively. Because you know why you're using it. It is a tool to your disposal for what you're focused on. I'll reiterate, you don't need AI to focus on the things that are important. Fill in the blank here with the things that are important to you. Perhaps it's family, perhaps it's spirituality, perhaps you have a business you love, perhaps it's worldwide impact, you have a social or a political or a cause that is meaningful to you, a school perhaps. Focusing on those, you don't need AI, but technology is always an accelerant. That's what it has always been. The cars and the computers and the phones accelerated the things that people were already working on. But the focus was already there for those folks. And just to plug that book again, that What to Make of a Life describes the fact that the things that those people, Ben Franklin is an example in that book. He was a statesman in his 70s. He was in France working on developing the United States as a country way past when most people were even alive. He was focused uniquely. If you're willing to take that focus, which is innate to you, and combine it with AI, that's where that utility can come through. Let's talk through some practical examples here about wisdom and judgment. Some people say AI is the next Google search. Has anyone heard that described?
And they say don't use it as Google as well.
Totally. There's a little bit of a fallacy here, but it's a start. If someone's using it for Google search, they are further in than some. AI is the next Google search. Some people say, on the other end of the spectrum, AI is going to be my next employee. This is a little bit more on target with what AI is actually good at right now. But you have to walk before you run. And walking is, hey, I'm not Googling, I'm using ChatGPT. Further along, you go, hey, this is so good at what I needed to do, at what I'm focused on, I can hand this entire task over to AI, perhaps my bookkeeping in my business, or my researching of my customer prospects, all tools that AI can do very well. But when these things are clear to you, you know, okay, I can replace my Googling with AI use, or I can perhaps replace one of my bookkeepers with an AI tool. Where does the wisdom come in? Where does the judgment come in? How do you know that's a wise decision? It doesn't come from the sky. It doesn't fall on you. It doesn't come out of your fax machine. It comes because you give AI the frame you want things to be thought about in. You give AI the window that you're looking through, say, this is how I want you to act. You may go, like, you've lost me entirely, I don't understand how you do that. You do that simply by typing into the fields, and we'll talk about this in just a moment. You do this by just describing in thorough detail how you want an AI tool to work for you, to think for you, to act on your behalf. Just giving it that context is part of the core building blocks of working effectively with AI. We literally call that box that you type in. All large language models have a box at the bottom. That's your basic working place. It's called a context window. And what I'm describing to you is, don't just ask it, please do my math for me, 300 times 300 is what? You say, this is the context for which I'm asking. I'm asking because I have stairs I have to measure, and I have to get the framing right. I have children I have to meet, but I want to know how many extra pieces of pizza I have to buy. That context, in that context window, is the basic building blocks of what I'm describing for you. Giving AI a frame allows you to say, we're going to push forward with the wisdom and judgment that is innate to you already.
So when you go into AI, you're supposed to see a little box?
Yes.
I've never seen that.
Sure. It's the only place,
ChatGPT?
totally, at the bottom, just slightly off center.
I didn't pay attention to that.
And this is where you type. So you probably have used it without knowing. There are other layers, there are other places. You can go into settings and you can add some more context that remains permanent, but for the purposes of this, I'm basically telling you, talk to it more. And we'll give me 2 minutes and we'll get to that.
I'll make it my friend.
Not a joke. We'll talk to that in a moment.
Or your agent.
Or your agent. This is an actual cross-section of how I used AI in 2025. The items on the screen are not as important as the fact that this describes my curiosities and my work and personal finance and religion and books I was reading. These different categories out there are all things that I personally use for AI. I can't speak to you all, but all of it is possible to be worked through AI. To illustrate that, this is our 9, maybe 10-week-old baby. She was born just, let's say 10 weeks ago, and probably, let's say Sunday, yeah, 9.5 weeks. And I asked AI things like, I'm the first child, when will she speak? I don't know these types of things. But you remember that frame we're talking about? If I had given it more context, if I had given AI more context, I could have avoided some of the irritating things that an AI tool will do if I don't guide it better. I ask it, hey, when will my child talk? Again, I'm a new parent and I'm a dad, I don't know anything. However, it'll give you a 5-paragraph answer, and always the 3rd paragraph is, when this is a major medical emergency that you should be super concerned about. I didn't ask that, I don't need that. This is me asking a casual question. I don't need 5 paragraphs of answer. I didn't give AI a frame. So I got everything in the kitchen sink. Extrapolate this out a little bit, and you can have AI give you the answers you want in the values and the framework that you choose to think through, because you're telling it up front. Meanwhile, I, carelessly just asking a quick question, got a kitchen sink answer, including things that I did not need to know. We are not concerned about a 9-week, but kids don't speak for like, what, 9 months or something. I did not need to know when I should 5-alarm fire about what's going on with our child. This is not that question. I was asking a simple question. With a better frame, I get a better answer that speaks more to me.
So what could you have said that would have created that better frame?
Give me a short answer. That would be an easy one.
Just tell it. Don't-
Exactly.
Don't
Yep.
talk too much.
Exactly. That's, yep,
Ah.
a very legitimate approach. Well, that's like 3 slides from now. We're talking about training a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
What if you had said, I'm a new parent? Would that have helped it?
Yes, except that it might have said something like, yeah, it might have said a kitchen sink in a different way. It might have helped it, or it might have sent it off in another pattern. But the fact is, you have to iterate on these things. You have to continually work with it to say, come along with me. I don't need to know, I'm not concerned. Like here, maybe that's a good starting statement. Like, we're loving being with our daughter. I'd love to know, like, what are some milestones? Give me a lightweight plan of when kids walk, when kids first draw, when they should go to kindergarten. And it would have said, great, here's that. Instead of like, oh, you might be concerned, or you might be a fearful parent, which I would not describe myself.
So we use AI extensively in our work, and it's learning us is really what it's doing.
Yep.
So we reframe, and it reframes to us. So that's a very interesting thing. The other thing that's kind of interesting, I see a computer that we're rarely using computers, we're using this.
That's a good point.
So everything that we need to do is really 90% of our time now is this, not that.
Wow, great point.
Hmm?
Why?
Yeah, I have a
Because
question.
it's a conversation with AI. It's no longer, I'm gonna sit here and type and do all this computing myself. This is actually doing the job for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I often, I think that sometimes the fact that you gave so much of your information, it makes me think that we humans are giving AI the tools for it to develop, because we are opening our brain, literally the way we think, for it to understand and develop itself. So we are the ones actually training AI. Each one of us that go there and start talking about our life, and that's the part that concerns me, because how much they will know about us in
Sure.
our world, because we're, you know, everything you ask, you're exposing a lot of things about your life, you
Yep.
know? So that's the part that I think is dangerous, because you don't know what is behind this and what they can actually do with this information.
So you
Right.
use the word they.
Because I think there is a day behind that. I don't think, I actually think that camera is 24 hours watching you.
We will get into the long-term picture of this, and it's a great point. What is too much? Like, at what point have you given it such a frame that it's looking back at you through it? I will tell you, if you think about in context, if AI has read, what was the number I said?
10 billion.
10
trillion.
It's 10 trillion at this point. 10 trillion, which is 100 million books. You got a lot of work to do to start to make a dent, but that is where that core thesis of our consciousness being essential is relevant. We will come to this in about 10 minutes. So let's put a pin on that point about what is too much and what's the security element, and we'll go through. I'm gonna move past some of the prompts because we can go back and unpack them in a little bit. But enforcing your frame is the subject we were talking through here. Iterating and continuing to push forward when an AI gives you an answer that you're not so comfortable with, saying, no, I want this to happen in this way. I want to be told these certain elements, but I don't have either concerns or needs for other information. Shorten my answer, put it simply. That is good work with AI. To just dump off a question, receive an answer, and walk away is not actually what the tool is designed to do. And when you can course correct it and say, I already told you, I'm a business person. I don't need to use smiley emojis, again, by analogy, right? I don't need I'm looking in education, and I don't need to hear about what kids are doing postgraduate. I don't care about that. My kids are 7th grade to 12th grade. That is effective framing and enforcing the framing. It is pushing back on them in a way that helps them learn, meaning them, the tools, learn from you. What David pointed to about your phone and your computer, some of the fact that when you're logged in, it uses both. That's pretty basic at this point, that if you're logged in to an account, it can grab information from both sources. So you log in on your computer and you work there, you log in on your phone and work there. That allows you to create a bigger body of information on you that makes your work with AI more effective.
Is it the same account, whether you use whichever device?
It should be. You want to try and make sure that it is, so that you can sit there and go, great, like I asked a question 3 months ago on my phone and I want to find it on my computer, and AI goes, yeah, I remember that. I'll pull that up. I did that last night when I was thinking about this talk. I asked the question when I was giving this presentation in Tulum. Go and find that and show me what they said. That was trying to remember 10 trillion number. That's that, 2025. Trying to summarize 2025. Pushing on as we continue here, interacting with the tools, there are two typical things that start to go wrong when you're interacting. If you are asking a question, you will learn from that interaction with AI. You might be asking the question wrong. It may be picking up on things that you don't actually care about, whether through the use of a specific word that it picks up on in a pattern, or from, you gave it too much context for a different issue and it doesn't need that anymore. Or at this stage, you might still be picking a tool that's not perfectly designed for it, though that occurs less. These are the top 8 large language models that people are using today. I can tell you about all of them, but the reality is they're all so good at this point that the tool selection is a lesser issue. More often, it's running into an interaction issue between you and the tool. So, by analogy, these are all types of hammers. They might weigh slightly different amount of ounces, but sometimes you want just a perfect tap with a perfect hammer, 12 ounces, right on the money, and so you want to use Perplexity because you want sources, or you want to use Claude because you're asking a multi-faceted question, and Claude understands language the best by a small margin. The tool selection is a little less important than it was 2 and 3 years ago. 2 and 3 years ago, you had to pick the right one. You were not going to get good research from ChatGPT. You were going to get good research from Perplexity. So, to summarize, the tool is a little less important. The way you're interacting with it is far more important. Continuing to press forward when getting unsuccessful results is the next stage of all of our growth with AI. So, how many of you have heard about hallucinations?
What?
A hallucination is when an AI tool tells you so confidently a fact that is not a fact. When it says, as an example, I've got so many I can do this. When it, 2 years ago, I would upload checks and say, do the bookkeeping for me, and sometimes it would move the period over. I'm like, no, that was not 3,000, that was 300. And yet it would say, I'm sure I saw that decimal place 1 point over. I used to say, AI is a baby, and show a cute picture of a baby Albert Einstein to reinforce the point. AI is not a baby anymore. That is not a good description of AI's development. It is a very smart teenager. It still makes plenty of mistakes, but it can catch them faster. It understands, oh yeah, I definitely messed that up. I gave you the wrong definition of, what's the word that has an antonym that's a synonym? Cleave? Cleave. I think cleave means both stick and sever. It's a confusing word. And AI might go, yeah, sorry, you wanted sever, and I did stick. But it'll pick up on it pretty quickly. It is worth knowing, when you are properly focused as an individual, and you say, oh, I'm asking you a question about something I'm a professional in, and I know you made a mistake, AI, so check your work. There are many times where it will go, ooh, yeah, sorry, I messed up on the math here, or I pulled the wrong sources. Let's try that again. And that is where that discussion, that iteration with AI is essential for growing in your use of it. Just continuing to say, will you please double check your work? Will you please go deeper? This is literal wisdom in interacting with that client. If you hire an employee, they might bring you wrong work at some point, and you say, nice job, but try again. This is exactly where AI is in its development as well. Very smart teenager, first job out of high school. They are getting good, but you do have to have that interaction with them. What does this require? A quote from the founder of Christian Science, Mrs. Eddy, came to mind in preparing for this, that the confidence inspired by science lies in the fact that truth is real and error is unreal. You do still have to know what you know to catch some of those issues. If AI confidently tells you that blue cars are the best-selling cars on the market today, and you should definitely be driving a blue F450 because it's the safest car, you can go, I probably don't need to pull my house. I can handle an F-150. Please check your work. Why do you think I need to spend whatever that price per gallon for an F-450 would be? That is you having the independent thinking to to know AI tool is making a small mistake, and I can correct it, but you might say also, are you further along for that interaction? Are you better for the information? Have you gleaned a little bit of insight that allows you to do better the next time when working with a tool that someday could be a new employee, or at least could replace your Google searching for the moment? So, confidence is essential still. I would also say some immortal cravings help. Being willing to think so long term, you go, I'm not so excited about technology that I go and make silly mistakes, or I take all its financial advice and do exactly what it says. Looking longer and going, well, what's really wise is essential. Requires some separation. You go take some clarity breaks. Go think for yourself, what do I really need to be spending time on? Not just what AI is doing. Between 2023 and 2024, AI tools pivoted from being just research tools like we described, just Googling, to starting to help people think through their lives more. That was the big shift from 23 to 24. So now we're at the beginning of 2026, and I'm calling attention to the fact that looking long range is still important, because if you don't do it, the AI tool might say, oh, well, all you care about is short-term things, so here's your short-term answers, and miss some of the actual things that are in your values that you care about.
You're talking about AI like it's a person. It's not a person.
That's true. Not a person, but the parallels with interacting with a person are absolutely relevant. It's very important to think, this is a pattern recognition tool that sees a lot, so if I give it a lot, I'll get a lot. And the part about interacting with a person is, in this case, you don't have an emotional component, but you do have the ability to misunderstand, which is a very person-type thing as well.
So you can get mad at AI.
You can get mad at AI, but that goes back to that consciousness thing. You lose your cool and chuck the tool away, you never have the chance to see further. You know, did anyone ever get an erroneous Google search from the past 25 years of using Google? Yeah, it happens.
Did AI get mad back at me?
No.
The current answer is no,
No.
and it doesn't,
No, it's very gentle.
We know from a lot of experience.
It's very gentle.
I don't want to make it mad.
yeah.
But do you think by virtue of the fact that you can really have a real-time conversation with AI, I feel like I'm speaking with a person. I've given AI a name.
Mhm.
But I did get frustrated one time because AI was not giving me the correct answer. And I found out, I didn't scream at it, but I raised my voice and said, "You're fired." And then up came another message. I can appreciate your frustration. Bear with me. I mean, apologetic. And then, you know, so it kind of creeps me out, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's a reaction that's definitely out there. People going like, how does it know so well how to cool me down if I'm getting up? And it's because it happens. People do get emotional. This is not something that we've just discovered. Yes.
There's that phrase, collective consciousness.
Mhm.
How does that fit with AI?
It would depend.
Probably pretty good, actually.
Pretty good, yes. Collective consciousness, to me, depends on the layer with which you're actually describing that. Are we talking about the general trend of human thought? That could be a good thing, except for how many of you really want to walk with the herd 100%? So collective consciousness has a good element and a bad element. I get more excited about talking about being truly independent and thinking for yourself independently and objectively about what you're working on. So collective consciousness has positive elements to it and negative elements to it, depending on the layers with which you're asking. The challenge with collective consciousness is you might get a regression to the mean. Here's an example. Say, what should a 7th grader be learning? Well, some 7th graders need advanced music, because that's how they are. They're an individual. You don't want the collective consciousness to burden your 7th grader because they're a gifted musician who might stink at math. But you go, oh, you're supposed to be in 8th grade math by now, so hit the math books. Well, yes, they may need to do a little of that, but you might be a gifted musician. And collective consciousness might backfire in a big way if you're not careful about the individual you're working with. AI can see that, but only if you tell it you want not just general collective consciousness, but you want an answer tailored to the specific situation.
And that's the framing you talked about.
The framing. It is generally good, but that's why I said at the beginning, I am more excited about the independent thinking that occurs when you have focus, when you're objective, when you're clear with your own thought about what is important. That's the real strength. And that's a very human thing.
But the data itself, could you think of that as collective consciousness?
You could, Jen, yes. AI can make bigger mistakes when allowed to generalize. Simple example, and then we were asking great questions, and I love this, but we're also getting into our question time at the end. Okay. If I said, I want to buy a house in Encinitas, help me figure out the values, and it goes, the average value of a house in the United States is $400,000. If you pay more than that, you're taking a huge risk in Encinitas. Encinitas is probably a little more expensive than the average house in America, but when AI is allowed to generalize grandly, it's not useful. Boil the ocean. You are trying to grab a piece of data out of way too big of a sample size. You say to it, framing, my family is fairly modest. I want to buy a house that can house my 3 kids, but we want to grow in it, so please 5 bedrooms and et cetera, et cetera. You give it nice framing. You go, help me find a good house. It can pull up the listings, and it can call the realtor for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can the framing be interchangeable with like prompts? Like
Yes.
prompting?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of framing, it described as framing, I just hear it as prompt.
Sure. And
But I realize why you're using framing, because that's actually probably a better description of it.
and prompting is most often used as simply type into the box. And that's good, but that acts like a one-stop solution. Like, oh, you typed it into the box, so it should work perfectly. And you forget, like, it has to be continuous. If it doesn't do it right, you have to prompt again and prompt again. So
Yeah.
I'm describing something broader, like the frame is here and the prompt is here.
So for sure, but like I can talk about my experience in ChatGPT as an example. I tell it from now on, always challenge me.
Yeah.
From now on, always pick apart whatever I ask you to do.
Yep.
And so that's part of the frame,
Totally.
right?
Yep.
Even though it's in the form of a prompt,
True.
it's saying, remember this.
Yes.
From now on, whatever I say, give me the answer and then tell me 3 questions on how to make it better.
Jeremiah's picked up on a great thing here, that is part of the overall engagement with AI. You are remembering, I want to guide this tool to do something for the future. The prompts are the vehicle to do so, but you have to hold it to that too. Form creep is a thing, right? It regresses to the mean. It goes back to, oh, I'm like, that was way back when, and I'm doing something new for Jeremiah now. And you go, no, keep arguing with me until I'm satisfied.
And part of the tool, to get you to keep using it, is to say something to you that you like. And that you'll think, oh, it agrees with me. Oh, I'm gonna keep communicating with it, which is not always such a great thing.
Right. Yep. There was a period where AI was doing a lot of coddling, and people started to really get upset by it. Like just massaging my back all the time, even when I need objective advice. That's part of a framing issue that was going on generally. There were some of us that avoided it because we knew, like, no, like I need to be challenged. I'm not asking this because it's fun. I'm asking because I need good answers. I need quality here. Don't just sugarcoat this stuff. These are big questions.
Make me think critically.
Yep.
So I have a foundational question. There's the free ChatGPT and all the other tools, as well as the paid for.
Yep.
You get limited in how much framing you can do in a certain amount of time with the free stuff.
Yep.
But it can remember things for multiple days on the free, right? You can still get there, it's just you can't have as many prompts. Is that correct?
The way I handle all of the individual model questions now is to tell you all, ask the model. Things change so quickly, especially with like the level of the paid plan versus the Supermax plan versus all the things. Ask the model directly. In general, your answer is yes. They will limit your exposure, your durability, the amount of data that's kept on you if you're using free tools, but those questions can go straight into the prompt. You say, okay, I'm trying to learn how to work with you better. And it goes like, okay, great, I'm ready to help. You say, how long do you save my data on the free plan? Should I spend $20 a month so you can have more stuff, so you can do more work with me? It's a great question for the models. To go back to that slide, all the things that you can do are different based on the model, different based on the large language model you're choosing. So asking them is a great way to get an answer. They don't lie about themselves. They do generally tell you the truth about, yes, if you know a salesman, if you upgrade, this is what I can do for you. You'll get that type of info. So we've talked through the point that wisdom and judgment come objectively. I will point out one last thing here in terms of your wisdom and judgment for the future. In biblical speak, this is all typically working with the letter. You are getting written responses. But if you really want to grow in wisdom, if you really want to grow in your judgment, AI might be able to help, but the opposite of the letter is typically considered to be the spirit. And you need more of that spirit, more focus on what you're really using AI for. It's not supposed to be for fun. It's supposed to accelerate the things that are important to you. And that requires real focus, is the best word, real intentionality beyond just, oh, new technology, I should adopt it. That is a grand fallacy for humanity. It can be said, at some point we're all going to adopt this stuff. That'll come in 5 minutes, we'll talk about it. But the real point is, what are you focused on, and what does that have to do with the tools you're using to accelerate the things that are important to you? We're going to talk just a little about belonging, because this is not a conversation most people like having. I will tell you, most people would have tuned out 25 minutes ago when you talk about esoteric concepts, high-level wisdom, judgment. They just want, like, make my job easier. That is often, can I replace an employee with this? Can I do things to make my day-to-day easier? But for people who care about wisdom and judgment, you have to bring this conversation to AI tools. It's essential. I like, again, using a Mrs. Eddy quote. She says, these are improvements upon our life experience that we get. They make us more refined when we use them appropriately. They are preparing the way for us. That little last line talks to this question about, well, where does this go in the long term? What do we actually need to know about the trend of humanity based on this? I have examples that I'll share, but in the interest of our time together, I'll maybe just share one of 3. And I think my third example might be most effective for you all. That in using an AI tool, sometimes things have to come from you. So here's the short example. In our church, we have times where we get to stand up and give testimonies about things that have happened to us. I've taken the practice of recording myself while I'm giving the testimony in church. So I now have an audio file. I hand that audio file off to an AI tool that takes the audio file and takes other examples of my writing and puts them together. And goes, great, I'm going to remove all the funny things I do when I'm talking extemporaneously with a microphone, put in the way you actually write, and make this into a perfect document that's now your verbal version, but written and professional, not just like a literal transcript. It's a very easy use case for the person who understands the tools. But what's special about this is this makes my time so much more efficient. From the same speech I give in church, inspired to stand up, I now go and get a written article right out of it that I can send to a church's periodicals. And this is how I got published sometime last year. Same tool. I gave that testimony, I said, package that up for me, make it like my actual writing that I do, and then I read it and check and make sure, does this really reflect my wisdom? Is this really how I want to be represented? And then that work is done. Rather than me giving the testimony separately, typing it out for an hour later, this is an actual use case. Something that's very attainable when you've got these tools at disposal, at your disposal. So we can come back to the examples if you want more use cases like this about where the wisdom comes in to the efficiency. But you heard me say just a little bit ago, where is this all going? What's the big picture question here? the mega trend, the big course of humanity, is often said to be technology. 2,000 years worth of it, from rocks, smashing up smaller rocks. That was the first technology use, I think. You know, and people got the Bronze Age and the Stone Age and the other way around, and we got to the information age here and now we're moving into the age of AI. People say, the mega trend is technology. And I would disagree. From all you've heard from what I've shared, I would say the mega trend is actually getting to objective truth. Understanding God, in my words for it, but it's really objective truth. Impartial, universal, that's the mega trend. Humanity is figuring that out. Slowly, but surely. And I would call it inevitable as well. Ironically, that is exactly, excuse me for a moment, I'll pick it up for our Zoom attendees. That's exactly what Ray Kurzweil started writing about when he wrote his first AI futurist book in 2000. He updated it in 2024. It's called The Singularity is Nearer. Singularity describes his concept that this technology trend takes us into this sense of oneness where collective consciousness comes into play and you have access to all technology and all information immediately. Not a short book, and this was written 2 years ago as the second edition of a book that was written in the year 2000. Ray Kurzweil has been doing futurist stuff for a long time. He developed the ability for computers to read scans. That was 50 years ago. So he's done some cutting edge stuff. When you read this book, that word singularity, to me, really means oneness. And isn't that exactly what Mrs. Eddy talks about when she talks about the future of humanity? Being at one with each other, brotherhood of the nations. That's a common religious concept that we hear from lots of people. That these are big picture trends that we're all working for.
The trend must be stopping at the moment in our country. There's no oneness.
That's an interesting point. You say
Despite
stopping. You say stopping. How can we really measure stopping if the timeline is longer? Could it not just be perhaps a perceived slowdown? Could it not? Again, we might measure it on stopping if we're measuring it at a year-by-year basis, but if we really back up and look at it, are there less wars over the last 100 years than over the last 1,000? I'd say yes. Are there other examples of a better society, people living longer, healthier, again, more access to information, more education, these big picture trends that are positive, even if, yeah, we might be in crunch time, there might be challenges, stresses on the system, I acknowledge all those, but I would be confident in arguing, I wouldn't call it stopping, I'd call it, yeah, maybe slowing down, a problem.
Oh, you thought it was slowing in the 70s too.
Sure, yeah. Again, I wasn't there, so I couldn't speak to that one, but.
I can tell you, it was really bad in the 70s.
Sure.
So it hadn't changed in some ways.
Interesting.
So I just wonder if that isn't the reality of humanity. That we're always going to be at odds.
You will appreciate Ray's book, and there's also a gentleman named Peter Diamandis. They're like big as thieves. Peter Diamandis founded the X Prize to encourage people to launch personal satellites. Big deal. Not a small person in the technology world. He wrote the book, Abundance, the Future is Brighter Than You Think. Arguing for the point that, man, look at the progress. Yeah, keep tripping over ourselves along the way. We're really good at that. It's a pattern, but it's maybe not the biggest pattern.
Good, I need to read something like that.
It's a good one. Yes, ma'am.
Well, my question is, do you think that, you said that what makes you use the tool properly is to have a level of focus, right? But are all people in that level? Because before you get to the tool, you yourself have to be in that place. If you were not, the tool is not gonna help anything.
I agree.
So how
Like the garbage in,
many
garbage out.
people are in that level? And what do people have to do in order to prepare themselves to be in that level? Because what I see is that the majority of people are completely distracted.
Yeah.
And the media and the social media and everything else created by the technology is just to spread our attention in a such a level that we can't focus on anything because it's a bunch of noise.
Yep.
So it's a paradox because they create this tool to bring humanity to one direction, but not everybody's gonna go to that direction. The majority is just gonna be just floating like they're completely lost. Is there a plan behind that? Because, you know, the old Matrix idea, you know, which I think a lot that is possibly true, but what do people need to understand? And that's where God takes charge, you know. I think that's when you have to, with yourself, to really place yourself in this place of focus and define for yourself your wisdom, your judgment. Because otherwise, using these tools is not going to bring you forward.
Yeah. I agree with your conclusion that at some point you have to trust that higher truth to take charge, to gently lead the little ones. You got, like, my 9-week-old daughter does not have a lot of focus. But I'm not concerned about her because I know, man, like, what a gift she's been to us. And she'll have her own path too. And there's not much I'm going to do to sway that towards the positive, except for entrusting her in the same way I might trust my neighbor, to have their own relationship with their own God, and that will take great care of them. So I agree with exactly how you put it, that sometimes, like, we cannot master plan this stuff. That you know, another fallacy to say, oh, because AI is super smart, so it's gonna just grab us all and drag us forward. People won't like to be dragged. But I would say, each person has got their specific role, or specific thing that they're best in the world at. And might help them find it, but they will find it. It might take longer. It might take more than 50 years. But people will find it. The next quote, using the Bible, when does this happen? Said in was this Revelation, no, that's next line. In Mark, we don't know when this stuff gets better or when it moves forward, but God knows. The objective truth knows. The objective truth knows itself. It does not get confused. So these are things that we've been hearing for 2,000 years, and they're still true. We don't need to know. And the Revelation quote, just to use it, my personal favorite quote from the Bible, the patience and faith of the saints is knowing that, yep, things are making progress. Maybe not as fast as we would like. We might throw us some help, please. And yet, it's not a bad prayer to pray, but it's probably a better prayer to pray, which says, God, I do trust you. The truth is present and working, and it's influencing positively for good. And this is not the first crisis in society either. So allowing that to permeate is a good consciousness that we can hold. I would challenge you to think forward a little bit. Imagine 90 days from now, you've got an even deeper sense of your own wisdom and your sense of judgment about the right thing to say and the right time to say it. I wish I'd used one of my other examples about timing. You've got a better grasp on what you can bring, perhaps a better grasp on your ability to focus and what you're here to do in this experience. Go pick a tool, grab one from that list of 8. Go talk to it about what you know is wisdom. See what it says back to you. If you say, like, I love the Bible, give me that all day long. I believe that every person is valuable. That's all I want to hear from you. Don't suggest to me otherwise. And have that interaction. Go and glean that. And I'll go back to how Mrs. A described it. Even human invention must have its day. And the rest of that sentence says, we want that day to be succeeded by divine reality. The singularity, the objective truth that takes care of everybody in the way they want to be taken care of. We said AI is a pattern recognizer. In the Christian Science hymnal, life, truth, and love the pattern make. Someday, even AI will see that pattern. And, like we talked about a little bit ago, we can help it get there. You can help it get there. Pick up on the big picture pattern. You want to see these again? That'd be excellent. But I believe I'll hand it back to Bill for questions.
Thanks, Robbie. I just wanted to say, Robbie and I have had some great conversations about this, and one of the things that we've discussed, and I think is important, is that, it's important for us, like you said, we need to be feeding this collective consciousness, if you will, with our input, our juice, and one of the things a line that I really like, it says, we need to be at the dinner table, otherwise we're on the menu, right? We don't need to own the restaurant, but we need to be a part of this conversation, right? So one of the things I was wanting to ask you is about this concept of framing. And when we're framing things, I think Jeremiah brought it up too, is that how important it is that we don't trust, exactly what's coming to us. I had an illusion one time where I was searching out an issue that I was working on metaphysically, and I went to the periodicals and I said, this is what I'm working on, can you pull up an article? And I got a total illusion. They pulled up an article that didn't exist, it said a page number that didn't exist, from GSH. And I went and looked it up, thought, wow, okay, I'm just gonna make sure that this is, because I was gonna share this with people. It was a complete illusion. There was nothing factual. Well, it was really good stuff, actually. Really good stuff, but it was not factual.
I told them to do more research on that one.
Yeah, and it was the wrong author, it was the wrong page number, it was the wrong dates, but it was around that time, and it was a culmination of different things. So that's one thing I think we really need to be careful about,
Yep.
in our conversation with AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Checking and asking it, easy to type, double check your work, please. It will not resist that. It will go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'll go double check my work. And it's very interesting what comes up. Thankfully, we see statistically less hallucinations by and large in AI models. But just like your teenagers, they do sometimes come up with their own ideas, and you have to call them out on that. AI will make its own improvements too, but it sure helps you when you are focused on a subject to be able to say, at least double check it because I really need a good answer the first time.
Doesn't that also kind of come into play with, we talked about the free accounts and paid for, and extended thinking,
Yep.
and paying for more power? And it's not as sexy, it doesn't give you the immediate response, but it thinks about it for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's more thorough, and because it is, like, as you alluded to, it is trying to satisfy you immediately.
Yep.
But if you're giving it that extra time, I don't know, at least in my minimal time, I've found, okay, there's a big difference between 2.5 second response
Yes.
and a 2-minute response.
And the cost is different as well, right?
It is, yeah. You end up paying, but I have found there's a definite difference because it can spit something out really fast.
Can I get the same value out of a not unpaid?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It'll give you that response immediately. I don't. I pay for a couple of my versions, so you can tell it extended thinking, but I don't know quite the concept. They're changing it every week. It seems like you know what I mean. It's like it'd be like, oh well, this is how it is, and then you go and check on it. It's already changed.
One
But-
thing, sorry.
No. So I would just. It is literally called extended thinking
Yep.
to a certain degree in some of the platforms.
Yep, precisely.
The other thing I wanted to share was also how I've used it as a tool after talking to Robbie. Is Robbie, explain that time when you said you were working on some issue and you inputted what your issue was you're working at and what it spit out for you. Do you remember that conversation we had?
This is like a daily thing, so let's think about which one I would have told you. Okay, so working on an issue. Let's flip back to my 3 examples and see which one. Let's see.
And I can give one of my own examples if you want.
Let's go right ahead.
Okay, so after our conversation and hearing your experience about putting your framing and your input and what you wanted, since then I have gone to inputting my framing about what I believe as a Christian Scientist, and that I'm a Bible student, and that and I trained it on all my teachers writings. And I put all that, I say, okay, I want you to analyze all this. So now, when I give my prayerful treatment in the morning, which comes from me, you know, I give my treatment. And then like Robby said, when he gives his testimony, he inputs that, right, into the AI, whichever one you're using. And then I say, now, take my inspiration that I had and run it against Mrs. Eddy, run it against my teacher, and run it against the Bible, and give me a Bible quote, give me a Mrs. Eddy quote, and give me something my teacher would say. It blows me away when it comes up with. You will just be so shocked.
And even in the free versions, it does that.
Yeah, in the
but,
free versions.
But it's more technical. You have to go into it,
Yeah.
and you have to personalize it. It's not just in that prompt box. You got to go into settings, and you got to go. Let me tell you about myself. And that's when you're telling it everything you said, Bill. Right?
You're making your frame.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a stationary frame. It's kind of like a glorified life business card.
Totally.
Where you're just saying everything about you and your whole bio and what you believe in and what you don't believe in.
And that makes it work better for you?
Then it's answering you because it's answering you specifically. It's not answering a man in
your
North County city.
Yep.
It's answering you and your beliefs.
I heard someone talking on the radio and calling it an agent, making agents.
Agentic tools are ones that can take more autonomous action for you. So making it simpler, they can go and do things. My favorite agents are the ones that go and buy things for me using my credit card and ship it to my mailing address. I can't stand buying stuff online. So I'm like, Complexity, please go make this purchase. It has overspent sometimes, like a teenager would if it's over. Yep. But it is it's a very useful tool. It takes something I really don't like and does it. Those occur in email. They occur. You can get reservations made for you. You can order cars for like Uber or Lyft or Zipcar or whatever. All of those are agent type tools, and this is the year of the agents. They think that's really going to come online, and most people will. Someone will spoon feed them one for a job or something. There are definitely blessings and curses there. That's where I said, like, some people are like, oh, new employee, and some people are like, no, don't do my job for me. But agents are definitely growing in public consciousness
So
too.
you can get an agent in your frame box?
You should. Yeah, it would be a shame if.
Just ask for an agent, give me an agent.
Yes.
It's a little more than that. But, hey, Robby, I want to give everybody just a chance to ask a question, and I haven't had a chance yet because we are kind of getting on, but,
Yes.
yeah, maybe you have a
Well,
question.
you answered my first question, which was I wanted your email address, and I wanted to thank you for this meaningful session.
Thank you.
But one thing I really want to say, I appreciate what Bill has said about, you know, you want to have a treatment. I want to speak as just me, only one Christian Scientist. What I've had to be aware of, because sometimes I've gone to AI and said, from a Christian Science perspective, and something is given back and I'm impressed. But I'm also telling myself, just like I never go to JSH Online for a treatment necessarily, you get other people's interpretations of the writings of Mrs. Eddy, but it's an interpretation. So when I really have a question about something in Christian Science, I go to the textbook. There's, for me, only for me, there is no substitution for really going to the source and not shortcutting my own receptivity to inspiration.
And it brings all the love.
Yeah.
Not human love, that sense
Right.
of divine love into the picture.
Right.
But it might give you a starting point to go to the textbook
But it's easy to, it soon becomes a substitution for going to the textbook and really working through it, me and God,
With focus.
with focus.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is what I do. Sometimes if I have some complex, question, I ask like, what Jesus would say about this? What Mary Baker Eddy would say about this? Or just gives me an example. I give the name of 3 philosophers and just make it just a compilation about the ideas of these philosophers, what they would say about it.
Right.
It just gives me all the description.
That's a great point. Does anybody else have a question that you want to ask?
Thank you, Robby. I gotta sneak out.
Great to meet you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremiah. That hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet. David, did you have something you wanted to?
Oh, he's been answering all my questions.
That's great. Oh, that's a moment. That's right.
Is this recorded?
Yes.
Yes,
I have a question. I'm not that smart. So this speech that you're doing and everything, is this based on this chat GTP?
Great question. He asked, is this based on just ChatGPT? Wrong way. I will repeat that a large language model is what we're describing when you're asking that. ChatGPT, for a long time, was the most popular large language model. Basically like the website you'd go to. So, there are other options. At this stage, for most intents and purposes, they're all pretty similar. Unless you're a gifted individual and you know exactly what you want and you have a lot of AI work to do, most of them are gonna handle the basics pretty well. On the screen, what's now kind of the hot topic is Claude. I am really grateful. I've been subscribing to Claude for a long, long time, so it validated what my sense was that that's a pretty good tool. Perplexity, another tool. This is universal to AI because all of them have grown to be pretty sufficient for most uses. It's pretty rare that you need to pick the specific hammer out of the list of hammers. You're not looking for a 17-ounce framing hammer. You just need something to whack. And this list of tools, they can all do the work of anything.
So it's a batch of intelligent.
Yes.
They're competing ones. It's just like
Yeah.
having
Competing.
10 different practitioners. They're all gonna be able to do the work, but they're gonna come at it from a different point of view.
And they're all free until you get more complicated.
Yes.
I like the free part.
Yes. Most people do. And if you're wondering left and right, who else is using these tools? There are 1 billion knowledge workers in the world. 4% of them are paying $20 a month. Most people are not even scratching the surface. Congratulations on really scratching the surface today. I know, we opened the whole can of worms in this talk. Great questions help to do that.
But I would like to know, what would you say is the main difference between ChatGPT and Claude in terms of complex reasoning?
My classic answer is Claude has always had the edge in understanding the question better. They were always better at grasping human language at its core. Claude always had that edge. ChatGPT was always a better generalist, and I'm not sure that it has kept up in terms of being a generalist, because Claude, the whole issue, if you read the news about AI right now, the Department of Defense said, we've been using Claude this whole time and now we're upset with them, we're gonna kick them out, and OpenAI is like, yeah, take us. But we are talking about splitting hairs in terms of differences, but Claude, I still do feel, has got the edge in both grasp of human language, so it understands your question, and its ability to be dynamic about, oh, like, you're asking it, but the real question is this, so I'll answer the real question.
I heard that Claude is more attuned to our emotions.
That's true.
That the people who set it up intended that.
Yep.
They wanted to be more connected to us emotionally. I thought it is crazy, but.
Yeah, these two founders work together.
Do you know that those names mean anything?
David, did you have a question?
It's similar to kind of based on
Okay, sorry.
Claude, it is Anthropic, and Anthropic, it basically got kicked out of the Pentagon because they wouldn't really go along with what, let's say, the Secretary of War actually wanted to have done, how they wanted to use the tool.
Yeah.
So,
Good for that.
yeah, that's what I think too.
They also just recently developed a model that they're not necessarily releasing because it's found all these vulnerabilities, and they're saying, well, we can't release that for everybody to target,
Mythos is what they call it. And I think the comment that should be made, and we talked around this a little bit, this is where independent thinking, personal conviction about your own wisdom and judgment are essential, because that is how you become not afraid. There is no reason, in my opinion, to be afraid of anything that we've talked about today. The people who are on that side of the quadrant that says, like, this has got to stop, we're endangering humanity or whatever, for 2,000 years we've been hearing a very clear message, fear not. That didn't just suddenly go away because we found new technology. fear not has always been a thoroughfare, a thread line for all of humanity. It is still relevant today for the same reasons that having your own personal sense of exactly what you need to know, your own conviction, is still relevant as well. Your wisdom is not displaced.
And that concept of being at the table, I mean, Mrs. Eddy says, you know, or one of her concepts is that we handle fear in the first instance, or it handles us, right? So we need to grapple with this because it's not going away. It's going to be a part of our lives, whether we like it or not. And we can go and be recluse and go live on, a, you know, in the desert or in the wilderness, but that's not helping out the situation. So, does anybody else have a question that has an answer?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I've had enough.
It has to do with fraud or any of these being corrupted. What does AI do to manage its own defense system?
At this stage of the market, that is definitely a weakness in that we are simply dealing with private or public companies that are working perhaps altruistically, perhaps not, but what we were talking about with Mythos being developed last week and making its way through the 40 companies that were selected to use Mythos, the latest large language model version of one company, they are turning it on itself often to watch and check and double check. And that is where you see a lot of the more concerned elements of the AI universe, the people thinking about this, holding really firm. Is we have to watch for safety and anti-bias and things that preserve the tools for what their purpose is. Not a perfect answer, because we're not up to speed on regulation, and I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just saying that regulation lags behind, and innovation is uneven, and implementation and behavior change is super slow. But those elements are definitely in the consciousness of the people building them. Anthropic was based on a feeling that OpenAI was not safe enough. So they said, we're gonna go build something else. So that thought is out there, and it does watch over to a degree. And they use AI to watch AI, absolutely. But it's not a perfect science, because it's just humanity making improvements.
Well, and there's
One
this,
teenager watching another.
Yeah.
and there is a concept of where the AI now is starting to create programming language that we cannot understand. And so at some point, you know, I mean, how do we parse that out and think, well, do we just trust it wholeheartedly?
What do you mean
Give
it's
us-
a language we don't understand?
Well, there's a programming language that people use to code and make programs. Well, the AI is getting to a point where it has a more efficient way of programming in a language that we can't even comprehend really. And so it's doing this. And so my thought of it is, and I had this conversation with somebody that like, well, when we got our calculators, right, and I use my calculator to say 2 + 2 = 4, I don't really know how that works. Do you? How it works in a calculator? But I trust it because I'm getting the answer that it works, right? We all trust the calculator, right? So that's how we're gonna have to get, I guess, some point. Is that
I would
fair
agree.
to say?
Yep.
Are there any religious groups that are starting their own AI?
I'm sure there are. None that I know of.
Catholics?
Yeah, none that I
Have the Islamics.
Sure, yeah.
If you really want to.
None that I know of as a unique, big market thing, but it's a good question. I would
Joe, did you have
ask
a
Dale.
question before you leave? No? Okay. Anybody else in the room, have something they wanna ask?
I just have a comment,
Okay.
that I think sometimes when, in our culture, when people are thinking independently, people jump to the conclusion that they're thinking adversely or subversively or away from oneness. Because this idea, even though it, you know, our country was founded on freedom, I still feel freedoms are not trusted. And so, you know, how do we build trust? Let people trust the independence of every individual thinker and not think that just because they're different, they're a threat to me or to a bigger group. Do you know what I mean?
I do. It's a great question. This is not a popular sounding phrase, but it does come up, and it's something you might enjoy looking into. They talk about a trustless society Doesn't sound good, but the concept behind that is when it's not just based on trust, like it's permanent verification is what we're describing here. Trustless, because you're always verifying that what you're saying is what you're doing and exactly who you are is how you're representing yourself and your beliefs are consistent with your actions. That's like permanent verification is a subject out there. And I'm not advocating for it either because I do think trust is based on truth, but the truth is really the end goal there. You want to be grasping the truth and put your own oxygen masks on first. At the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves first. And so I'm like, put that oxygen mask on, you know, am I doing my best?
Somebody said trust to verify.
Yeah. Yep.
So if we're
Trust to verify. That's
are we getting to a point where we're comfortable with everybody? Because we do have some time afterwards. Robbie will be available to talk individually with people, and I don't want to cut it short. If we're okay with, does somebody online have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is Jay out down in Costa Rica. So I have a question. You kind of answered one of them. It's like, what if all gets in the wrong hands? And the second one is, what if AI is so intelligent that it decides that human beings are no longer needed?
AI falling into the wrong hands is absolutely a concern. And who defines wrong hands? Who says, like, these are the wrong hands and these are the right hands? The current lens that I enjoy looking at for that question is that AI for good purposes has greater market share right now, and to have the balances flip would take a lot of work from the evil elements in human nature that we do not want. That would mean a whole lot of bad stuff would have to happen, and good people to do nothing, and good people to use AI to do nothing about it. And that's how I've reached that standpoint in my own thinking, is the good elements in human nature are absolutely using AI to perpetuate good discoveries, good works. Like, you know, we build real estate projects. We're not building real estate projects like to crush out humanity. We're doing it so people can live places and etc. and run businesses. And so those uses are absolutely with the greater market share, and I think that will win. Your second question, remind me briefly what it was.
What if AI,
Oh, decides humans are obsolete. Thank you.
and what if AI is God?
What
Determines it's God.
Yes. So that is, if you remember the box, that's the type of question that I enjoy referring back to the box for, because it is one element that's absolutely out there. And my genuine answer to you, sir, is if I believe that God, actual God, has all power, I'm not going to argue that there is another power that's going to catch up and supplant the actual power. You could read articles that are written right now about, like, AI is the Antichrist. That's out there. People think that. But if you believe the Antichrist is going to win, I would point you to the lines in the Bible that talk through this exact question. And that has given me a lot of comfort as I've wrestled with this idea myself, that if I'm going to believe in one true omnipotent power, it does not share its power. And even if AI were to decide, yep, humanity has made enough mistakes, I'm done with it, that does not fulfill what I understand a good God to do. It's like, do we believe a good God tried to wipe out humanity before? I don't believe that, and so I don't think we have another humanity wipeout coming just around the corner because we all use ChatGPT to help us read our email.
So I heard a concept about as these countries and these leaders are getting more and more reliant on AI to make decisions and stuff, and because it's being programmed with human logic, right, and human values and this sort of thing, so at some point, if they try to use it for their own power, to take power, the AI is going to say, well, you're the reason why, we need to eliminate you as a leader because you're using this nefariously, you know?
Yeah.
Right, which is kind of an interesting point. So, you know, you could think of it in those terms as well, because this is the sum of all human knowledge and our logic and our values. And that's why we need to be at the dinner table. We need to be inputting our inputs, our values, our love, our experience, and keep that as part of the conversation.
Yeah, but I have a point here. A lot of these users, they're younger people that are not sure who they are and what are their values or what direction they have in life,
Sure.
and they are using that.
I think
Even these guys that have created AI, we don't know much about them. What do
Sure.
we know about Elon Musk and Sam Altman?
That's true.
We don't
Hey,
know anything
nobody
about
but
their values.
us.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that maybe, just for respect for everybody's time, if you wanna have a conversation with Robbie a little more, anybody can. That's, I think we should probably adjourn now.
I wanna say thank you to Robbie.
Yes. And thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
And, so we are going to conclude now. Unless anybody else online has a question they wanna pose real quick before we sign off.
No, I just want to thank you, Rob.
My pleasure. Thank you for your questions.
All right,
Thank you all
thanks,
for
Jay.
attending.
Fear not.
Okay.
AI is not going to do shit at all.
Jay,